Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, Murderous Kangaroos, Murderbots and just regular murder. It's my weekly wrap-up. So yes, quite a lot of trash to talk to you about today from last weekend's wasted weekend, and also a couple of indie things that I've read this week that I've really enjoyed. So 8 books to get through. That takes me to 14 books in my second Read What You Own challenge. So if you missed the video, I'm doing the Read What You Own challenge again. I'm reading 100 books I already own before buying any new ones. I'm up to book 14. It's taking me a lot longer this time. So the first time I did it, I was quite deliberate about the way I did it in order to get through it as quickly as possible. This time I've got more caveats and stuff like that, and it's taken me a bit longer. I will do an update video on it at some point, probably in the next couple of weeks, just to talk about how things are going and how it feels second time round with my slightly different approach. But yeah, up to book 14 now. So normal format for this weekly video, I will do a little bit on each of the books I've read this week, and then talk about what's been on the channel and what's coming up on the channel. So let's start with the books then. So I think I was reading this last week when I filmed this. So last week was the August wasted weekend, where I encouraged people to read at least one trashy book. I managed 4 in the weekend. The first of those was Confessions of a Window Cleaner by Timothy Lee, which I'd already finished by the time I filmed this last week. So I talked about that one last week. The second book I read then was The Roo by Alan Baxter. A very enjoyable, very silly killer kangaroo book, like deliberately over the top and enjoyable, had a definite Australian flavour to it, and was just really fun. I tend to enjoy Australian stuff. I've been watching a couple of Australian TV shows recently. I don't normally watch much TV, but recently I've watched, what's it called? Boy Swallows Universe, which I really enjoyed. And then Deadlock, which I enjoyed even more. Deadlock being a kind of comedy detective series, but Deadlock I thought was really excellent, and again very Australian. So yeah, this was very Australian, very funny at times, very over the top in terms of the stuff the killer kangaroo did to people, but very enjoyable. I like that, and a good choice for August. After that then, I read something quite different, and I have done a review of this on the channel. So this is Dead Air by Bob Larson. So Bob Larson being a Christian like disc jockey, talk radio host, things like that. He had been a musician at some point in his life, and is now an exorcist. So he used to do exorcisms of people over the radio, so people would call in to his radio show and he'd do exorcisms. He now does them on YouTube. So I didn't realise this when I filmed my review of this video, but he actually has a YouTube channel. So you can search for things like Bob Larson Exorcist or something like that, and you will find his videos of him performing exorcisms. Anyway, Dead Air is a book that kind of contributed to the Satanic Panic. It came towards the end of the Satanic Panic, but Bob Larson had been someone who really stoked the fires of that moral panic. This book kind of draws on his own experiences as a talk radio host, and has the main character being contacted by a young girl who claims to be being abused by a satanic cult, and it's about him rescuing her. And it was actually quite a fun thriller. Some of the details of the kind of satanic rituals and things like that were disturbing, like genuinely disturbing. Some of them were just absolutely ridiculous, quite funny, including one bit where this girl claims to have been put inside a dead horse and then like born out of the horse in like a satanic rebirth ritual. So it was quite weird at times, this book, but it was reasonably gripping and entertaining. And then finally, for the wasted weekend, I read from one of my favourite trashy series, The Executioner. So this is book 46 in the Executioner series, Bloodsport, by Don Pendleton, although it's not by Don Pendleton because he'd stopped writing them by this point. This one is by Ray Obstfeld. So this was an enjoyable kind of Cold War thriller with Matt Bolan going up against a German terrorist group who were like recruiting Olympic athletes to be part of their terror plot, which was quite entertaining. So that was quite fun. So that wraps up the wasted weekend for me. I then read something very different, which I'm not going to talk about in any depth at all, because I'm going to do a review video and I want to keep my opinions of the book secret. So that book was Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes, so a kind of sci-fi horror book. S.A. Barnes' second book, I think, the first one being Dead. I keep forgetting the name of it, Dead Silence, I think, which I haven't read yet, but lots of people seem to have enjoyed. So yeah, I read Ghost Station, and we'll be doing a review of that probably to coincide with the release of it. After that, my ongoing project to read all of Patricia Highsmith's books, which I'm doing with Anne from the channel and Novella. So I read A Dog's Ransom. This was a really good one. This was a really fun Highsmith. It was quite playful at times, but got really dark towards the end. So this is about a guy who's writing poison pen letters to this kind of quite well-to-do couple in New York, and he ends up kidnapping their dog and asking for $1,000 ransom for it. And the plot kind of spirals from there, with this guy who's a cop who learns about the case, who gets involved in it. He doesn't need to get involved in it for his job, but he's kind of trying to do the right thing. He gets involved in it as well, and it gets increasingly convoluted as the story goes on. But it was a really, really enjoyable thriller. As I say, quite amusing at times because it was just a bit silly, but the further it goes, the darker it gets. So yeah, enjoyed that a lot. After that, a reread, or a re-listen in this case, because I listened to the audiobook, and in fact I listened to it on my Books Palmer, which I talked about recently on the channel. So I will be doing a review of this, but I've been using it this week both for listening to audiobooks and for reading, and really enjoying the experience, I have to say. So listening to the audiobook of All Systems Red, the first of the Murderbot Diaries by Matha. So I read this a couple of years ago, really enjoyed it, and then recently picked up all of the audiobooks in like a humble bundle deal. Not all of them actually, I think there's a couple missing. I think the most recent one's missing. But I'm going to listen to those in order. So yes, listen to the first one, really enjoyed it again. Murderbot is a great character. So Murderbot is this kind of like cyborg type character whose role is to work as a security unit and protect people who are going on missions to other planets. And he realises, it's not a he, it's an it. It realises that on its latest mission something is awry, and it helps the humans survive, and also discovers a bit more about itself. So yeah, just very funny. Murderbot is a really interesting character, very kind of cynical and very neurotic as well, which is quite entertaining to read when you're reading about an artificial intelligence. So yeah, really fun, really enjoyed the first of the Murderbot books. After that, so next up, the last two books are both indie books that got sent to me by the authors. So the first of those that I read was Osgood is Gone by Cooper S. Beckett. So I remember when this book came out a few years ago, it was reviewed on a website I was writing for at the time, Sci-Fi and Scary. One of the other reviewers reviewed it and loved it, and I meant to read it at the time and then never got around to it. Anyway, the third book in this series, the Spectral Inspector series, is being published at the end of this month, and Cooper S. Beckett, the author, approached me a little while ago and said, would I like to read the third book? And I said, I'd like to read all of them. So send all of them to me. So he's provided all of them. Read the first one. I loved it. It was really good. So about this character, Prudence Osgood, who is like a podcast host, and the podcast is about like investigating spooky goings on. And in this first book, she gets sent this weird email, which she and one of her friends / partners try and decrypt, and it takes them into this really creepy mystery. So this is a book that was very funny at times, had a really nice kind of found family vibe to it, but also like really, really creepy at times. So it taps into one of my favourite kind of creepy tropes, which is like cursed art. So art that sends you insane. So it does that really, really well. Had a fantastic ending. I liked it so much I went straight into reading the second book in the series, Osgood Riddance, which again I'm enjoying so far. So reading that one at the moment. And then the other thing I read was this Enemies Closer by Tom Batt, a really enjoyable British crime thriller. So I read this morning, started it this morning, finished it this morning, read it in one sitting. Really, really entertaining, about a cop trying to catch this armed robber, but told from like both of their perspectives. I'm going to do a review video where I talk about this and another indie British crime book I've read recently, the Sherlock Holmes book I talked about in this weekly wrap up a couple of weeks ago, I think. But yeah, very, very entertaining. So yeah, enjoyed that a lot. Look out for my my kind of double header video talking about that and the what was it called, the New Case Files of Sherlock Holmes or something like that. So yes, that's what I've read this week. So currently reading that second Osgood book and also listening to the second of the Murderbot stories. So enjoying both of those. Right, in terms of what's been on the channel and what's coming up on the channel then. So in the last week you've had my review of Dead Air. You had my unboxing of this, the Books Palmer. You had my like pile of possibilities for March Mystery Madness, and thanks to everyone who suggested cat and quilt related books in response to my query about those. And then you also had a video where I talked about finishing like the complete bibliography of an author and whether that's something that's a good thing to aspire to or not. So that's what you've had in the past week. In the week ahead, you're probably going to have my March TBR, a book haul video. So I've received loads of books recently from both from viewers and also from like authors and publishers. A video about rereading, so the perils of rereading books, and that video I talked about where I talk about this and the Sherlock Holmes book I read recently. So that's what you've got coming in the week ahead. Anyway, I'll leave it there for Saturday. Hope you all have lovely weekends. Do let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about today. Let me know what you've been reading. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.